All right, hi, everybody, it's 7 o'clock and I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Um, this meeting is gonna be conducted in hybrid format with board members and the public participating both in person and also on Zoom. And I'll ask everyone here and on Zoom to help us set a respectful tone today, so that we have a productive evening. Today is February 3rd, 2026, and I'm gonna kick us off with a storm update. So, the storm, Fern came by and visited Woodstock along with our neighbors. The town really pulled together, so as soon as we were aware that the storm was going to become a big deal. Key personnel were pulled together to discuss a strategy and how we were gonna execute and communicate with the public. On the morning of the 25th, the storm went from red to dark red, and that's when I declared a state of emergency for the town of Woodstock. And that allowed some executive orders to go into place so that we could clear the roads, keep everyone safe. And within those orders, there was also some financial benefit to the town. If the county receives a certain amount of a threshold, then we will recover every dime of our cost. So folks who worked overtime, things like that, there's quite a bit of extra cost to the town to maintain the things in a safe manner. I also, for 48 hours, lifted purchasing requirements so that anything related to public safety or for damage to property, we didn't have to go out to bid and we didn't have to take months to go through that process. And it was a good thing that happened. There was only one item that was purchased. Our maintenance department has two snow blowers, both broke down with the volume of snow. And so we were able to, with that order, go and purchase a new snow blower. And the folks in maintenance were able to go and clear out the handicap spots. They were able to continue working and clear out what are called cutouts. So if people getting off the bus or crossing the streets could safely do so. And so that came in handy. That was the only purchase that happened. Along with that, we also opened the community center. So again, in declaring the state of emergency, we were able to open that community center. And I want to say thank you to Lily, who worked 12 hours that day to ensure. And also to Reggie, who did stop by and worked some hours and relieved the overnight crew. Also, Ulster County sent us a reserve person from their medical reserve corps. So it was nice to have all of this help and support from the county. There were daily meetings, we got updated properly, and they were a great partner. So thanks to Jen Metzger's office as well. And I want to say thank you again to maintenance, police, dispatch, and highway. Tonight, overnight, our highway department is going to be working from sometime after this town board meeting till sometime very early tomorrow morning to remove as much of the snow banks as they possibly can.
Great.
So this way we can see, when we make left turns onto 12, and we can, continue to get to safety. So that was the storm update. And again, thanks really to the whole town pulled together, I thought, and did a really good job. And the board really worked behind the scenes. So many people, I'm not gonna list everybody because literally this whole town pulled together. It was pretty amazing, actually. So with that. So with that, we're gonna go into some resolutions very swiftly. Tonight, we have a public hearing. And so I'm gonna move through the resolutions rather swiftly. We don't have anything overly complicated today, so we'll get to it. The first resolution is resolution revising the term length of the zoning board of appeals appointee. Whereas the town board is authorized under New York State Town Law 267 to appoint members of the zoning board of appeals and set their terms, and whereas the town board has determined that a revision to the term length of a zoning board of appeals appointee is appropriate. Now therefore be it resolved that the term of Greg Goodbroad, zoning board of appeals appointee, is hereby revised to expire on December 31st, 2030. All in favor?
Second.
Oh, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone not in favor? Okay. Resolution appointing a member to the cemetery committee. Whereas a vacancy exists on the cemetery committee, now therefore be it resolved that Catherine Carberry is hereby appointed to the cemetery committee, a term expiring December 31st, 2026, effective immediately. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution accepting a resignation and appointing a new member to the Environmental Management Commission. Very swiftly, the Environmental Management Commission is a county commission. And every town, village, and city is represented with a member. And so tonight, we're going to vote on whether we're going to appoint somebody to represent our town with the county. Whereas Erin Moran has submitted notice that she does not wish to renew her position with the Environmental Management Commission. And whereas the town board wishes to formally acknowledge and accept this resignation, I'll add and thank Erin for her service. There'll be a modification. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby accepts the resignation of Erin Moran effective December 31st, 2025. And be it further resolved that the town board hereby appoints Linda Setchell as the new representative for the town of Woodstock to the Ulster County Environmental Management Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Before I go into the next resolution, I'm going to read a statement. And this statement is going to be to establish/reestablish the Climate Smart Task Force. As town supervisor, I establish the Woodstock Climate Smart Community Task Force and appoint Linda Setchell, Bob Wolf, Laura Rickey, Edward Swanson, Chloe Leader, Caitlana Vigliamo, and Lizzie Van as members.
Second.
Oh,
this is not-
no,
Sorry.
supervisor, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll move right
And
into.
I will just say, the Vigliano, I think that you updated it, but just so that Megan knows it's not updated here, Vigliano was misspelled. Okay. Okay, but it's on the last thing.
Resolution reaffirming and reestablishing the Climate Smart Task Force. Whereas the town of Woodstock previously adopted Resolution 71-2020, establishing the Climate Smart Task Force CSTF to guide municipal climate mitigation, adaptation, greenhouse gas reduction, and sustainability programs. Whereas the town of Woodstock achieved bronze Climate Smart Community certification on September 25th, 2021, with certification expiring on September 30th, 2026. Whereas Woodstock's internal CSC status report identifies task force organization as an expired action requiring updating for recertification. Whereas the New York State Climate Smart Community Certification Program requires current municipal authorization for the task force to receive credit toward recertification. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Woodstock town board hereby reaffirms, reauthorizes, and reestablishes the Climate Smart Task Force for the 2026 to 2031 CSC certification cycle with the following duties. Coordinate and advance CSC actions across all municipal departments and community partners. Be no fewer than 4 times per year, maintaining public minutes. Support documentation for CSC recertification and future pursuit of silver certification. Maintain a 7-person membership list updated annually and approved by the town board. Serve as an advisory body to the town board on climate ready policy and implementation with quarterly updates. Be it further resolved that this resolution replaces and supersedes prior task force authorizations solely for the purpose of CSC recertification and remains in effect until amended by the town board.
Second.
All in favor?
And real quick, if I could just say, if we could call it the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, if we just click the word communities in, the CSC actually does stand for climate, that's right, I didn't push that earlier. If we could just put the word communities in there, Climate Smart Communities Task Force, since that's actually what the CSC does.
Is there a second for Peter's motion?
So, thanks.
All right, all in favor?
So I should have, you have to vote twice, once for the change.
Well, I don't think you might recuse yourself. Well, you voted on the other one wasn't a vote, so you vote. Vote how you want. What is the question?
Okay, so communities, I don't know if we needed to approve twice, once the change and once the actual.
No, we'll go with the change.
We'll go with it.
All right, with changed version, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Resolution appointing a climate smart communities chair. Whereas the town of Woodstock participates in the New York State Climate Smart Communities Program, and whereas designation of a climate smart communities lead is required to coordinate actions, reporting, and grant opportunities. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock hereby appoints Linda Setchell as the town's climate smart communities chair, effective immediately. Be it further resolved, the responsibilities of the chair of the task force coordinator shall include schedule and chair meetings of the task force, nominate a task force secretary, and as needed, other task force officers for the task force to approve, recommend additional task force members to the town board to approve, organize and coordinate the efforts of task force members, communicate to the town supervisor and update the town board, represent the Woodstock Climate Smart Task Force at meetings and forums.
Second.
All in favor?
And if I could just also say, I want to thank people to know at the last meeting, we asked for a coordinator, and Linda Sexel has stepped up. We've had 2 climate smart community meetings so far, we have momentum, thanking Nula for her support. And I just want to let you know that climate smart communities action is alive and well and moving forward.
Thank you. All right, before we move into the next resolution, we're going to have a short presentation so that folks who are new on the board get a chance to hear directly from Mary, who will do a short presentation so that we can, in an educated fashion, vote on the next resolution.
Wonderful. Thank you, Supervisor. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, welcome. Thank you so much. I know we'll do our best to keep this short. My name is Mary Lambert. I'm a Climate Action Planning Manager with the Hudson Valley Regional Council, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Sarish Oscar, who's the environmental scientist on this project. We are going to be talking quickly about the landfill biofilters project that the Hudson Valley Regional Council is managing, and in which the town of Woodstock is participating. Just so quickly, a little bit of background about HVRC. We're a regional planning organization. For those of you who don't know us, we're one of 650 regional councils in the U.S. We provide a regional perspective. We offer planning, education, outreach, and advocacy for the counties and communities in the Mid-Hudson region, including Ulster County. Here are some of our regional initiatives. We do a lot of work around economic development, wastewater, water quality, the Clean Energy Communities Program, and the Climate Smart Communities programs are ones that we support. I know you just spoke about that, so please do reach out to us if you're looking for assistance with those programs, as well as we run cohort programs for climate action planning. And we support regional platforms, both around materials management and regional sustainability. This is our landfill biofilters team, myself, Dr. Sarish Askar, who is our environmental scientist, and Eleanor Peck, who provides oversight for the program and also works on our CSC and CEC programs. On the right here, you see Dr. Askar at the town of Woodstock's landfill. It's over on West Socrates Road. We've been doing some initial research on the landfill and taking some initial readings, but we're here to really hopefully just formally kick off this project. So a little bit of background. About a year ago, a little before that, HVRC won a $3.1 million grant from the EPA through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program to mitigate methane on landfills in the Mid-Hudson region. We were thrilled to win this. We were the only organization in all of New York State that was awarded one of these grants, and we feel very lucky to be working with municipalities in the Mid-Hudson region on this project. So just again, some background. Why is this an issue? So municipal landfills are often the largest source of government operations greenhouse gas emissions in a given municipality, but they're mostly too small to warrant methane capture for energy production or even flaring. They're often contaminated under investigation from New York State, and they emit foul odors or do not support native habitat. This is an example of a greenhouse gas emissions inventory that we did for the town of Northeast, where you can see that their solid waste facilities are 93% of their greenhouse gas emissions, and that orange part of the pie is represented 100% by their landfill. So, and this is, we've seen from doing greenhouse gas inventories with municipalities in the region is very common that they're if they have a government-owned landfill, that it is responsible for upwards of 90-95% of their greenhouse gas emissions. Even though many of these were closed in the 1990s, they're relatively small, they still produce a ton of methane. So why biofilters? So microorganisms in biofilters are called methanotrophs, and they break down the methane emissions and convert them into energy or other relatively harmless products. They also reduce other common pollutants, such as VOC, hydrogen sulfide, and ammonia, and they mitigate foul odors. So they're a small, relatively cost-effective solution. They run 40 to 60K to design and construct a biofilter on a small landfill. And they can be as small as a 2x4 raised bed, or they can be bigger. And the size is dependent to a certain extent on the amount of methane coming from the landfill. They need very little maintenance. They need to be replenished every now and then, spot treatments as needed if there is an incident. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So in summary, really, why biofilters? They put the landfills to good use as a source of municipal GHG emissions reductions. That helps New York State reach its CLCPA goals and earns your municipality points, hopefully, under the Climate Smart Communities program for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. They're also a potential source of carbon credits, and they position your landfill as a potential source of revenue generation from solar or battery storage. Those are optional components of our project, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We also are doing a third optional component of the project, which is to plant native pollinators on the periphery of the landfill. And so this all creates a positive narrative of the landfill as both a climate mitigation and adaptation solution. So again, natural, environmentally friendly, cost-effective, low maintenance, and efficient at mitigating methane. And we've seen from studies all over the world that biofilters can reduce methane anywhere from 30 to 95%. So again, very effective, but we're hoping to demonstrate that through this project as well. We have 13 participants who are going to be participating in this project or this program. You can see Woodstock down at the bottom there. You've opted into all 4 components of this project. And I should note the solar is just a solar feasibility study. It's not to actually put solar panels on the landfill. And same with battery storage. It's just research, really. Here is a map of where the other participants are located. You can see Woodstock is the farthest to the north, but there's some near you as well. So we're excited we've been to these landfills, and they're all very supportive and excited about this project. And now I'm going to let my colleague, Dr. Askar, who's on the call as well, talk a little bit about the solution itself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mary. I'm going to talk about the biofilter solution. So here what you see is a simple example of what we mean by the biofilter. Over here, you got gas flow through the PVC pipes and entering into the structure. At first glance, it looks like a raised flower bed. On the top, typically it's a protective layer, often gravel underneath. It's like a working layer of the medium, which can be soil, mulch, or compost, depending on what's locally available, and that's where microorganisms reside. And it's relatively simple concept where we are trying to use the microorganism which lives in these mulch or compost to consume methane and just in control and engineered setup. So basically what's nice about the biofilter is the practicability. They are scalable depending on how much methane is produced at each vent or like at each site, and we can match the design based on the flux and concentration of methane, and design can be very flexible and variable. Next slide, Mary. So over here, you see a couple of examples of biofilter designs as well. They can be on the left side. It looks like a big mound of dirt. In some cases, it's pretty close what it is. the kind of design that make more sense and when you got space and it's simpler site and they are relatively easier to be on site, like there is no accessibility issue. On the right side, however, you'll notice like it's a fenced and line biofilter design. And that usually means when there is limited space or access requirement or erosion control aversion, or like there are some stormwater consideration, or we have to um, control more operational parameters and safety. So depending on what each site required, we can modify our design. So basically it's same core technology, but they look totally different depending on the requirement. Um, so let's talk about what actually happened inside the biofilter in our next slide. So here's a quick operational flow. First, the contaminated gas stream enters the biofilter through the porous layer, which is mostly gravel or rock bed, where the PVC pipe has small holes and the gas flow through the vent and it gets distributed throughout the working layer, which is compost or topsoil, or depending on what we want uh, based on the methane concentration we are trying to mitigate. So after gas permeates upward through the biofilter media, what happen is the microorganism in that media consume methane and they do all the heavy lifting and reduce methane into either their biomass, they increase in numbers, or they completely decompose it into carbon dioxide and water. And which brings us to the part where a pile of compost from a reliable system, the key success factors are operational factor we are supposed to control are humidity, temperature, oxygen level, because microorganisms, they consume oxygen to oxidize the methane gas, which is part of the landfill gas. And that's one of the factor since there is no oxygen in landfill gas, we have to control it by either mixing the media or providing the oxygen to the system. And maybe next slide. Okay, so some of the factor which influence the design of the biofilter is methane concentration, how much methane is being produced at each vent, what's the vent size, what's the dimension of the overall landfill, either it's steep or straight, or how that is, like the topology and the space availability, and also the media type, like if we are using mulch, compost, each of those media, the working media layer should be hold in different kind of a microorganism ecology. So based on that, we can control the biofilter's performance or efficiency of it. And other includes environmental factors such as like the external temperature and the gas temperature, since we can control the gas temperature, but we can either cover the biofilter to make it higher in terms of temperature when the external air temperature is low, and also cost depending on how many biofilter we need on each side. We can like we can see how many we need, and then we can decide like if we want what would be the length and other diameter of this biofilter design we are going to use. So yeah, I'm going to let Mary take over for the next part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarish. So here's a flyer that we produced with our educational partner, the New Jersey Institute of Technology. They provide technical assistance to Region 3, which is our region for the EPA, and they have produced some great marketing material and educational material for us, and we'll be doing more educational events with them moving forward. So partial list of work completed to date. Really, I just want to focus in on the fact that we're working very closely with the EPA and the DEC to make sure that we're abiding by all their rules and that we are going about this process in a way that meets their approval. But we've hired a quality assurance and data consultant as well, who is closely involved with this project. And we've drafted a memo of understanding for participating municipalities, which is, I believe, on the agenda tonight for the board to review and hopefully to pass the resolution. I just want to end with a quick Q&A. These are questions that have come up frequently. Will the town have a chance to see the design before it's implemented? Absolutely. We are going to be issuing an RFP for the biofilter design, and once we have those preliminary designs, we'll share them with you as well as with the DEC for review and sign off. Will there be any cost to the town? No is a short answer. We, as I mentioned at the beginning, got a grant for $3 million to do this project. However, at the end of 5 years is the length of the project. It may go on a little bit longer, but at the end of the project, the town will have the option to keep the biofilters or to have HVRC remove them. So if you choose to keep them, there will be some upkeep and maintenance. It's minimal, and we'll provide you with a manual on how to do that, but it's basically just aerating the medium so it can provide oxygen to the methanotropes, as Sarah spoke about. And mainly there may be repair or replacement of a structural element as if needed. And lastly, will the landfill cap be affected? No, all the project activities will occur on top of the cap, so there'll be no disturbance or interaction with the cap itself. So we are looking to get MOUs from all the participants, which we've almost done, and then we'll be conducting baseline methane emissions measurements to see how much methane is at each of the vents. We'll issue an RFP and select the consultant for the design and the construction of the biofilters. Then we'll go back and measure the methane again to see how much methane we have mitigated. We'll also, as I mentioned, have an educational component to all of this to help people really understand waste in landfills and how to reduce waste, really. And then, of course, we'll be working closely with the EPA and submitting reports to them. We are asking all the municipalities to sign off on this initial memo of understanding. Again, you'll be asked to review plans later on. So this is really just step one of a 5-year process. We already have your post-closure maintenance and monitoring manual for your landfill, so that is taken care of. And we do have some past research on your landfill. So again, that's already been done as well. So just wanted to say thank you for your partnership and support, and happy to answer any questions on this project.
Thank you very much. Does any council person have a question for Mary?
I do. Mary, thank you for the presentation. How long do landfills generally continue to off gas? Is this years, decades?
Decades. It can be up to 60 years, actually, depending on how much methane is in the landfill. Obviously, that number goes down over time, but because methane is such a potent greenhouse gas, even small amounts can really make a big difference in terms of the overall greenhouse gas emissions for the municipality.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I know I seen the presentation at the WEC meeting a month ago, so thank you for repeating it here so everybody could see it. And oh, by the way, we're working with Eleanor on the climate smart communities.
Wonderful. Very smart of you.
Evelyn, actually, the two of them together.
Oh, great.
Okay, all right. Resolution authorizing the execution of the Hudson Valley Regional Council HVRC Mid-Hudson Landfill Biofilter Project MOU. Whereas the Hudson Valley Regional Council HVRC has received federal CPRG funding to implement the Mid-Hudson Landfill Biofilters Project, which includes the town of Woodstock, whereas participating municipalities must sign the Memorandum of Understanding MOU to allow HVRC to begin methane monitoring, site review, and project design. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock authorizes the town supervisor to sign the HVRC Mid-Hudson Landfill Biofilters Project MOU on behalf of the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're gonna move on to the public hearing portion of the evening, so I will now open the public hearing on the proposed local law entitled zoning amendments to chapter 260. The time is 7:30. We are a little bit late tonight. Megan?
At the town board meeting held on January 6, 2026, the Woodstock Town Board scheduled a public hearing for amendments to the Town of Woodstock zoning law, chapter 260, amendments to the scenic overlay regulations for February 3rd, 2026 at 7:30 p.m. All members of the public may have.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we will go row by row. And see how that works. If anyone has anything that they'd like to say. In support of this project or not in support of this project, then please raise your hand. Susan? Yeah, if you just stand up and Yvonne, where should folks stand?
She's good right there.
Right there?
Perfect.
Okay, so people could stand right where Susan is.
Which project?
Yeah, and if you say your.
Which project is it?
This is
yours.
Oh,
The last project.
illustration.
have a short.
There's a presentation.
Yeah, but she's gonna be.
Oh, that's right, okay, hold on to that. Okay, all right, before we go into the public comment. What we're gonna do is actually have a short presentation, so everyone is familiar with what is being proposed. So, there are multiple meetings since last year, it was it October of last year? Around that time frame, and we've been meeting on a multitude of times. I see some new faces here. This has also gone before the planning board, but anyway, so what will be helpful is that this actually, there's a short presentation, then we'll move to Susan will be first. Okay, all right, who's gonna be doing the presentation?
Would you like me to stand up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you stand up, just say your name and.
Okay. I can stand next to you.
Oh, what do I do?
No, I know, I just want to stand up.
See.
That's right. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out. I know some of you have come just to hear this, so I hope I can deliver something elucidating. So, I'm really pleased you're here because we really need to share the excitement that we feel about this project. And I very much want to have everybody's input into it. I would also like to reassure you that we have been listening so far for the last 2 years and we'll continue to listen. So we're calling our project Project Regeneration because it's about regenerating the buildings that are down on Tinker Street. And this covers the former library, the former funeral parlour at 100 and the Little White House, which is the name of the building at 106 Tinker Street. My name's Lizzie Van. I'm an ethical builder, an entrepreneur. I've worked in organic food in the past. What does that mean for me? It means I'm focused on the needs of this community. I'm not looking to take any money out of the community in any way. And I, as an environmentalist myself and ecologist, I am very strong on the environmental aspects of it, but my colleagues are strong on other parts of it as well. My vision for these 3 properties, which are all next to each other, is to create 3 acres of beautiful parkland with the buildings that sit on them, to provide low rental housing for locals to live and work. My plan is to provide 5%, which doesn't sound very much, but it's 15 units of the 300 units that Woodstock needs, and that's the most that we can get there. To provide commercial buildings that create local jobs, so a co-working space, a business incubator. I'm going to put personal money into that business incubator, so there will be money there for grants and loans for small businesses that want to expand and bring more jobs into town, and all within that environmental framework I spoke about. So, for example, with the sustainable housing, we would like to retrofit 4 existing apartments. You know, the big Victorian building that's on the front at the moment. There are 2 apartments in there that lived in by local people. And the White House, which was owned by Janet Peterson before she passed away, there are 2, 1 family and 1 single person there as well. So we're going to retrofit those to very high performance school standards. And we're going to add either 9 or 11 new apartments, depending on how we work it out. There's a lot that we have not worked out yet. In terms of what does sustainable housing mean, we can have high performance windows, walls and doors. Super insulation. I'm really keen on insulation. It's one of the best ways to reduce our energy requirement, and solar and geothermal technologies. And my personal plan is that it seems to me that, you know, if we're trying to keep the cost of the rent down, we should also be trying to keep the cost of the utilities down as well, because that's one of the biggest headaches, particularly right now. So my plan is to try and make these so insulated and so efficient that the electricity bill is no more than $100 every month on average. Probably not this month, but you know, it should work out over the year. And whereas sustainable buildings in the past have been this sort of province of exclusive luxury $1 million homes, that's not my vision. My vision is to have high quality homes but lower costs. For the elderly, for young families, for young people in town, artists, musicians, voluntary emergency service workers, the emergency squad, and other service workers. So people that service the town in so many different ways. This supports the comprehensive plan. When I talked about 2 years, I bought the Lasher property 2 years ago and the library a year and a half ago. And the library was in place for a year. We didn't charge them any rent, but we were waiting for them to move to Dixon Avenue, which they did in September. And all of this time we've been listening and meeting groups, meeting the tree board and the environmental groups and the Complete Streets Committee and the commissioners. And reading the comprehensive plan, which I don't know how many of you have done it. I really recommend it. It's inspiring. It's also something that I feel needs to be updated every now and then, because we were looking for the environmental thrust of the plan, and it really needs a bit more in there. Anyway, the comprehensive plan calls for addressing the affordable housing needs in the town, reinvigorating our economy, creating a business incubation for local jobs, and creating recreational space and nature-based activities. So we call it project regeneration, and we're at the starting blocks. And these are the phases that every large project like this will go through. This is one of the larger projects, certainly in the hamlet of Woodstock. We will go through a site plan review, which will look at all of the potential uses of the buildings, whether or not they're obviously every building usually has one car connected to it, but how many cars, and therefore how much car parking is needed. We'll also go through the SEQR, which is
Secret,
but it is the
Sustainable Environmental Quality Review Act.
Sustainable Environmental Quality Review Act. We will call it SEQR. Once we get through that, and that will be through a series of meetings with the town and then public hearing, then we will be asking for building permits, and they again go through a review. We'll then go through the construction process, and we'll be open and transparent at every stage. I am not Woodstock National, okay? I'm not that kind of developer that is hiding behind facades or not being completely honest about what we're doing. This is all about transparency, and eventually we get a certificate of occupancy. That's the process. I want you to know, there was some comment today that we're looking to have a change of use and we're going to do all these things, and this is the only opportunity we get to talk about it. There will be many opportunities, and I'm here. I don't just have to talk to people at meetings. You know, I can come and see anybody that wants to talk to me, or as a group that you'd like us to talk about this ad. Okay, so, but first we've got to resolve this anomaly. We call it the anomaly. The three lots, 106, 100, and the old library, are bisected by a line which divides the section of Woodstock that's called Hamlet Residential from the section that's called Hamlet Commercial. So what you see here, it's a bit difficult to see, but there's a line running through the middle, which is Tinker Street. And the little black light in the middle says Hamlet Commercial. So all of that is Hamlet Commercial, which is a zone, and it has certain things that we can do and not do. And then to the right is Millville. And then the green area that surrounds it is Hamlet Residential. And that has a different set of criteria. So our lot is the one in red. So on the left, we've got the White House. On the middle, it's the old funeral home. And on the right-hand side, we've got the library. The library is the green space at the top, and the blue underneath it is the forever green park that we bought and take care of, but we don't do anything in. So just to go into that strange shape, looks a bit like a house. I have got this diagram. So this one shows exactly that, but closer up. So just going from left to right, the little black box on the bottom left is the White House. That is a 2-apartment house. Next to it on the right is the Victorian house that you see as you drive along the cream coloured building. And just above that is the old funeral parlour. To the right of that are the 2 barns. There's a little section in the middle, but there's 2 barns there. And then to the right of that is the library. The blue line is the bisecting line that divides Hamlet Commercial underneath from Hamlet Residential above it. So in property terms, with what I'm trying to do here, and I intend to rent every one of these units, not sell them, I need to have commercial properties as well as residential properties, because the way it works is commercial use subsidizes residential use, and I'm trying to create residential properties that have low rents. So I need to be able to have commercial there. This doesn't work if it's just residential. If the town would like this property to be completely residential, I'm very happy to sell it to the town at the price that I paid for it, and the town can buy it and can put affordable housing if you want to do that. If that's what the town would like to do, because I don't want to fight the town. The other alternative is for me to put it on the open market and to have somebody else come in and do it, and then for you to work with that. Those are your 3 options: to work with me, to work with somebody else, or for the town to own it. So I'm open to all 3 of those. I need to have commercial use there as alongside the residential. At the moment, if we go back to this, you can see that the space below the blue line, which is commercial, has 2 residences in it. It has the White House and it has the Victorian house. The area where we can develop commercial has no choice but to be in either bisected by the residential line or actually in the residential line. So the library, which is clearly not a residence, has been in the residential zone for as long as it's been a library. The 2 barns, which were a horse barn and a garage, bisects the line, and the funeral parlour. You remember when you went in the funeral parlour, there was a little section with a lit up area where you could see the body in the casket. That was in residential, and the area just below that was in commercial. So if we are to achieve commercial use, it has to be in the area that's designated residential. The Hamlet Commercial, Hamlet Residential line comes from the time when the zoning map was originally drawn up. Judith Salato said to me yesterday she thought that was 1989. We don't know what it is, but we assume that that's what it was, or around about that time, because there was zoning laws drawn up then by Ed Sanders and others. The line bisects the 4 buildings that were built decades before that. So the parlour was built in the 30s, the barns were built in 1885. We have a wonderful sign with an eagle on it that shows that. And the former library began life as a doctor's office in the 1700s, I think 1777. So there is an anomaly here. We call it an anomaly because, not to that, we call it an anomaly because the line that bisects the building doesn't have any relation to the use of the buildings or even the time when the buildings were occupied. So, because we want to use the buildings for both residential and commercial, because that aligns with the comprehensive plan, we need to have a campus designated, the whole campus designated as Hamlet Commercial. Woodstock zoning law states this cannot be achieved unless the whole whole campus is designated Hamlet Commercial. Sorry, that's a repeat. We would like the freedom. The reason that we would like to have it designated commercial is so that we can have this mixed use of commercial and residential, and also so that we can have retail there. Maybe just one retail. You know, we could have the type of thing that we see in Kingston, or so it is a bookstore cafe. We could have a community pharmacy. We've been talking about that. We could have an art store in those 4 buildings that are either bisected or in the residential area. These are community creating businesses. They're commercial businesses. You know, they're giving jobs and their money is churning around one way or the other in our economy, but they are the types of businesses that create community. And I am very community focused. Anybody that knows me will know that that's and runs like words through a stick of rock through me. Retail is not allowed in a Hamlet residential zone. So although some of the uses of this could be done with special use permits, we can't do retail there and we can't do mixed use there. So our simple request is to formalise the Hamlet commercial for the three buildings by moving the line north to the property line. So instead of the line being the blue line, it would be the red line. That red line runs to the north of our property. It's the actual property line. The left-hand part of that looks out onto Frank Cascario's land, which is wetlands, and just that he wants it to be left forever wild. And to the right-hand side of it backs onto a little lane. If those of you have been to a book barn sale, when the library is having its sales, you would have stood on that lane when we've been out there and looked at it. So that's just really to show you that. And just finally, my colleague, our attorney, will just clarify some of the issues that have been communicated before the meeting. But I really would like to answer questions. So I'll just say here wrong when you clarify.
I just want to distill this down to just four short, brief issues. I know that have been.
Do you want to stand up?
Yeah, let's just stand up.
See and hear you
Yeah.
better.
I know there were four issues that were raised in some emails that were going back and forth between board members, and I just want to distill a couple of things that Lizzie just discussed. The reason we need to do this is not only because of the anomaly in the zoning boundary district line, but because we can't have mixed use in Hamlet residential. That's only allowed in Hamlet commercial. So without that, we can't have the rental units in any of these buildings along with commercial units. And that includes the library building and a couple of the other buildings where we want to put residential, affordable residential units with commercial uses in the properties. Also, there were some concerns raised about future uses. What if somebody buys the property from Lizzie in 10 years and wants to put something else in there? That's permitted, but is noxious to the community. Well, when you're making a determination based on this application, in New York, under New York law, board cannot lawfully use conjecture or speculation about future uses. They just have to consider the application before it right now, based on the facts submitted in the application. And the other thing is that this project totally aligns with the Woodstock Comprehensive, more so than any project ever created in Woodstock. If you read the comprehensive plan, you see that all the proposed uses are totally aligned with the proposed comprehensive plan. Also, there was concern raised that I heard about potential spot zoning. This is not spot zoning at all. There's no court in the state of New York that would deem this to be spot zoning. In fact, it may even be what's called reverse spot zoning. It's not spot zoning because the key test is that the project aligns with the comprehensive plan, which this does, and that this is not a lot or area that differs from the established zoning of the surrounding areas. In fact, half of the lots are contained in the Hamlet Commercial District. We're not a little island in the middle of the R8 residential area that's opening up a bar. We are in the Hamlet Commercial District, and unfortunately, the property is not. That's very important to understand. And to the contrary, because of the anomaly here, the municipality has singled out this specific parcel and maybe a couple of others in town for less favorable treatment with more restrictive zoning than its immediate neighbors. Lizzie purchased this property for commercial and residential uses, and she's limited in her ability to use it as she proposes because of this anomaly. But this is what's called a split zone lot, because it's a single lot that's divided into two separate zoning districts. And that's it. Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask, has anybody got any questions?
You'll hear the question in public hearing.
Yeah, right. I'll sit down, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can stand where Susan is standing, just say your name. If you're a resident of Woodstock or not.
I'm Susan Painter, I'm a resident of Woodstock. Some of you may have seen the brand new billboard when you first enter town that says developers profit, Woodstock pays. Well, I'm hoping that tonight it becomes clear that the development that's being imagined by Lizzie that you just heard about is the antithesis of the type of development referenced in that billboard. I'm speaking as a former co-chair of the Stop Xena, Stop National, and the former chair of Citizens Against Terror. I spent many hours in the last few years fighting development that threatens our forests and the animal habitat that they support. So this proposal that Lizzie just spoke about is radically different. The proposal we're speaking about tonight to reimagine the library and the leisure property not only doesn't harm the environment, it is a model for green building that will lower our carbon footprint and set an example for eco-friendly development. The proposal includes a 2-acre park, permaculture landscaping, green building practices with high-performance insulation, windows, doors, roofs, and efficient energy systems that include solar and geothermal. Let's not let an arbitrary boundary line that currently designates the library building as residential prevent a visionary developer from providing our community with an eco-friendly and environmental park, residential incubator, and commercial enhancements. The idea that a building is so ludicrous to me that a building that once served as a library is now, with this current zoning, not an appropriate space for a bookstore. It's implausible. I encourage you to support the zoning change that will allow this project, this gift to our town, to proceed without delay. Thank you.
Anyone in the first row? Just let everybody know who you are.
Oh, I'm Sam Magarelli. I've lived here a little over 50 years. Seen a lot of changes. A lot of good things. And I'm always impressed with the way the town tends to always land on its feet. Works very hard. And sometimes we fight with each other. But there's a heart in this town that brings through. And my feeling is that Lizzie Van fits right in with that. She's a wonderful addition. Over much of the last century, Woodstock has been a beneficiary of some remarkable developments. Whitehead's Birdcliff Colony, Kirby White's Fabric, which wasn't in town, but dramatically affecting the town. The Woodstock Film Festival, and the contributions of many artists, writers, musicians, and remarkable people who have lived here. In addition to the wonderful locals, the neighbors, who have been a steady foundation for this community. I'm here to speak for another outstanding person in this case, who came here over a decade ago and has made our town so much better. What has happened with the Bassville Theater Center, restaurants, beautiful decks overlooking the Saltwood Creek, and the very necessary infrastructure that was sorely needed there. It's all been tastefully rebuilt and improved. That's one of the latest success stories for Woodstock, and Lizzie Van deserves credit, okay, for making our town much better, in addition to the good things she's already improved in the village here. This is an important thing, and probably the salient thing I want to say as I stand here. While improving the properties, Lizzie has always abided by the rules of the existing laws, never sought to bully the town, but only to take the proper steps to cooperate and move forward. She has proven to be a reliable, good person among us. As we know, there have been others who come to this town and have not been as gracious or considerate. That's why a lot of us are fearful. But we shouldn't be fearful of Lizzie. That's why I'm coming and ask you to think about this. She said her good intentions on the old Lashwood Library properties. And again, Woodstock will be the beneficiary of another one of her endeavors. New workforce housing, intelligent job opportunities, a delightful park which unifies the two great lawns on the western side of the village, and more space for successful local businesses, in addition, of course, to the housing. As we move through this process, let's remember, as Lizzie had said, acknowledge that we are working with a good neighbor One who only seeks to contribute tasteful improvements and has a track record to prove it. One who fits nicely within our neighborhoods, and I look forward to Lizzie continuing to do so. There will be an appropriate analysis of this project. That is rightfully so. But given Lizzie's excellent reputation for fairness, cooperation, and intelligent choices, you can only be optimistic for wonderful things to happen to Woodstock again.
Yes.
Okay, front row, second row, I'm starting right, well, my right to left. All right, you're in.
So like Sam, I grew up here, I grew up here with the son. We were in the same elementary class along with Nicholas and some other people. So we do care, and I've lived nationally, internationally, came back in 14, and I do care a lot about this town. I spent a lot of time volunteering and trying to help on lots of different issues for the whole of the town, the betterment of the town. One of the things a couple of things I wanted to say, but one of the things I wanted to say, I've got lots of notes. But I feel like us Woodstockers, to your point, Sam, which you're right, is that we've had people come here and take advantage. And it is why we're knee-jerk reaction, fearful. But we can't live on the defense all the time, constantly and forever. We have to think about sometimes if we want certain things like affordable housing or open spaces or other projects like innovative economies that is an alternative or an addition to tourism industry, which has been the only thing, it's only hospitality, that there's other things here. We have to think about and be a little bit more accommodating, welcoming. Yes, be cautious. Yes, think about those important issues. Yes, pay attention to zoning. But one of our big problems is that we're constantly on defense, and we constantly fight when we are doing some kind of new zoning changes. Everyone wants to jump and fight that. And it's really this common cycle that's a problem. We don't get anything done. It's frustrating, especially a lot of volunteers. I want to remind you that the first comprehensive plan, which was called the master plan, was in 1962. That was the first one that was adopted. 2018 was the second one that was adopted. That's our most current. They're supposed to be done every 10 to 20 years. You cannot predict or prevent every possible problem that's ever going to come. Between 62 and then they did the last zoning, which they took a whole bunch of parts, put it in one document, was in 1987-88. During that time, between then and now, in the 2018, we had no idea there was a thing called a computer gonna come along, and internet, and remote working, and Googling something. So we're never going to prevent what's gonna happen in 50 years. We need to do an updated comprehensive plan every 10 to 20 years, that's what they require. The state law requires that to happen to do major zoning changes. If you wanna try to adopt, and solve and prevent, then you have a comp plan, which is a legal document by the town people that then tell the town board what to do. It follows that legal document. Lizzie is following that legal document. The housing committee is following that legal document. Complete Streets are following that legal document. Okay, so somehow we have to come together and stop fighting and looking at, because all that we're talking about today, the zoning, is from 1987-88. Just so you know, all of that, not much has changed in the, not much has changed at all, unfortunately. But we're not, it's my side, thank you. So my point is that we really need to be smart and think about, and what she said, when you think about it, those buildings were built in the turn of the century of 1777. And then 50 years later, from the latest, the 1930 building, which is the library, then they drew a line through the middle of 3 buildings. Does that make sense to you? It's the only one at 159 commercial housing commercial between Tinker Street, Mill Hill, and Rock City Road that has happened. What, just those two little pieces. They're the only ones that have
someone after the fact, 50 years later, 100 years later, decided to put a line right through the middle of it. That makes zero freaking sense. That's spot zoning. We are correcting the error. That is what's on the table today. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we have somebody that's willing to take more time to explain more, to show you around. She showed me around. I've asked 100 questions. I've talked to lots of different people. Just be open-minded. That's all. Think about what things we want, and sometimes you're gonna have to trust somebody.
Anyone else on the second row? Sorry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, I've been really excited.
You just said that.
Oh, sorry, my name's Tansy Michaud. I'm a resident of Woodstock. I've been really excited to hear this proposal, and just as a town, I just wanted to say we're so lucky to have Lizzie here. I'm remotely like Lizzie here, willing to invest in the aging properties of our town, bring them sort of like up to stuff for this new generation of people who want to use the town in a new way. But also someone who's willing and dedicated to listening to our community and responding to what we need in this town. I encourage the town board to help this project along in any way it can. This project seems to be an amazing service for preserving and upgrading these old buildings, creating a new green space, 2 acres for our town, for the public to use, and building an intentional, affordable residences right in the heart of the village, along with developing an incubator to help new businesses and create jobs. This is amazing. Also, I appreciate how practical the plan is in using the commercial space to sort of subsidize the low-income residents. I think this makes so much sense. Yeah, this plan just seems so thoughtful of the people who will be using the property and who wish to continue to cultivate community in our town and grow more community here. So thank you, Lizzie, for investing in our town in a way that genuinely benefits everybody here.
Did you have something to say pertaining to this?
Yeah.
Or-
Actually, I really just can't. I mean, I've had. I don't know how to describe myself. I'm Sarah Yanish. I am, my house just burned at 117 Tinker. And there's more at Public Be Heard. I just want a little time to explain the series of events to clarify that. Because there's some confusion, but I love what you're saying, actually. And we can butt heads on ideas, but that's because I'm a details person. And that's because, and so I like your talk about, and sorry that I'm speaking directly, but I'm speaking about a project, but also a person. And so that's where sometimes there's communication stuff that we don't have to make it about a person, but let's make sure that we have the right people in place, that we're always paying attention, and that there are those limits at the end. Like, we can't have 3 people holding all of the land. And then, like, where I got nervous is that Bearsville Center, there was, yes, we still have our theater, and now we're just not sure what that's going to be. The library, and I understand we have a new library, but then we have to involve another commission to get that sidewalk there, because from what just burned, which involves another commission, people to communicate that are not communicating. Like, I couldn't have gotten there. There was no sidewalk. There are terrible sidewalks in town. So we have to limit things. We have to make sure that that's forever, that's affordable housing, that we don't have the same people owning businesses and all the residential in one town, that's all. So I actually really love this idea. What I just went through, I also see the same names. So if I'm seeing a town board member And I have to call this out, and I'm sorry, I don't wanna be a problem or somebody who's always, it's just because I really like us to take a close look. You work so hard on so many of these things, but let's not get a stale.
For the purpose.
I got it,
Because
but
I know
this-
you're on the list with.
Yeah, no, but that's gonna be about what happened with my fire. And how our first responders, God bless them, but they almost died because of a person.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So back to this
But
though.
but Lizzie, I love
Thank you.
this green energy, but we can't, after that, have another special use permit. And another variance on top of that where it gets sold and that person does that, we lose our green space, we lose Woodstock in the face of it, because we're not gonna have a Bearsville Center, what are we gonna do, have a medical center, well, this is this top. That's all, that's just my thought, that's all, I love this town, that's it,
All right.
and I love this idea as it is, but let's keep it, that's all.
Thank you. That's. All right, third row. Anyone in the, Rebecca?
Yeah.
Do you wanna stand or are you able to? stand?
My voice is loud enough, everything.
All right, just say your name and,
Rebecca Carmel. Yeah, those lot lines, I believe, were probably changed right before the zoning law in '89. One can only wonder why they chose to split those properties in half. Some of us might guess that it was because they were a little bit larger property and some people had concerns about commercial building. The reality is, that's a commercial area. That entire strip should be. It's got town water, it's got town sewer. We always need more gray water going into the town sewer. This is a perfect use for that piece of property. So I didn't want the new library. I liked my old library, but we have a new library. Why would, this can't be a residential building? It doesn't make sense. The fact that this is the only property in the commercial district that was aligned like that would make some of us wonder. And they were only held by the same people for so long and nobody ever wanted to try to sell them. That's probably why nobody ever realized it. One of the things that we would be doing is fixing an error from a long time ago, one of many errors that we had in that zoning law when they passed it. And there were many that did not contribute or benefit Woodstock, especially the Hamlet area. So whatever you need to do, you need to pass the lot change. You can't have a one lot split in half, that's ridiculous.
thank you. Hey,
All the way, like.
oh, okay, Alan?
I'm standing here.
Can you please stand over there so I can grab you on the camera,
All right.
please, if you wouldn't mind?
Yay.
Thank
I
you.
didn't prepare anything, we were just jotting down notes. As I listened, and I'm not trying to be devil's advocate. But I did jot this down. There's a lot of this plan that's admirable. I'm very supportive of affordable housing. I'm also very supportive of an affordable town. I do have questions about the commercial zone. My concern is how much control there would be over the nature of the businesses that would be developed. Those suggested would be consistent with Woodstock's character and needs. But my worry is that this could just be more gentrification, if not somehow controlled. Green is great, but many of us have little green in our pockets. As the proposal was presented, I found myself very supportive. But again, I don't know if the art store and the other businesses that were proposed are in writing, are confirmed, or just proposals that could be replaced by businesses that are not necessarily affordable or in the community's interest. So I'm raising it just as a question.
Thank you. Anna?
Is it okay? I also have a very large voice. I have a knee injury. Is it okay if I stand right here? Thank you. I appreciate it. Couple of things.
Say your name.
Oh, yeah, so sorry. I'm Anna Womack. I also live right in town on Tinker Street. I've lived here for about 10 years. Two initial questions that are somewhat related and then a couple of additional comments. One, Ed Sanders does still live in the area. I know that he was related to that zoning change. I'm just curious, this is slightly rhetorical for the time being. If anybody has talked to Ed, to Rebecca's point, yes, Laura. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. So, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily relevant to the conversation, but if we're looking for like reasoning, you know, he's still around. Second, Lizzie, are you planning on making like a website or anything additional for the project as a whole? Okay, cool. I would also like to, as a private citizen, just speaking for myself, related but also separate. I think it would be interesting to discuss what a rent cap might look like for Woodstock. I think if we're building affordable housing, that's great, but also looking at what folks are making in town and what the survivable living wage is for Ulster County. Right now, that's $32 an hour is the living wage. And that's per, not MIT, it's a different calculator, but most folks, the minimum wage for New York State outside of New York City just got changed to 16 an hour. Most places in the area are starting at either like 17 or 18, but that is nowhere near $32 an hour. So even if we create generally affordable housing, depending on what you're basing that AMI percentage, average median income on, for what area you're looking at or what sector you're looking at, I do still think it's important to consider other factors and to long-term look at what affordability means for the area as well. And so I think for the town, looking into what a red cap might look like for the area would be interesting, and I think that would be cool. Kind of to echo Alan a little bit, Busy, I also think if you're looking at potential businesses to bring into the area, or to kind of take those spaces, again, I think like an art store would be great. We also need places where people can congregate and hang out that don't cost a lot of money and that don't necessarily have alcohol present. So if you have businesses that would be able to take those spaces, that's super needed in town, just for the community, I don't know what that would be. Whether that's like a larger coffee shop, but those are my initial thoughts.
A health clinic also.
Or a health clinic, yeah, I mean, you know, I know we've got the pharmacy across the street, but anyway, those are just some of my initial thoughts on what would be helpful for town.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ken Tanza, president of Woodstock, and Ed Sanders is a friend of mine. And so perhaps I can give some background of those early zoning changes and those maps. Because I worked with that over a good number of years. I'm familiar with all the different comprehensive limits the town has put together, those that were adopted and those that weren't adopted. I think you have to realize back in those days, we didn't have things like GPS. We didn't have things like maps. And so, you know, a lot of lines were drawn with a straight edge through properties. And a lot of the properties are in split districts. It could just be the residential districts, the hamlet commercial, the water districts. Any of the districts are all split up like that. And the zoning law has language in it to allow those lines to be adjusted. So that if a property is split, the building inspector can make a determination. Now with commercial properties, generally the commercial owners want to have a clean zoning law, not a split property, which has been determined by the building inspector. So I think this is a perfectly reasonable request. It's a perfect request that fits within the language of the zoning law, and it's certainly a request which fits within the assumptions that the early zoning people made, like Ed Sanders and myself and others from Schwartzberg, who's got the name for long past. So this is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And I think the criticism of the past zoning groups and the people who worked on these laws is really unreasonable. And should not, you know, the current people who worked on zoning have done their job, but the others have done it also.
One to the left of Ken? No, okay, Deborah?
Hi, I'm Deborah DeWine. I live in Bearsville. I've lived in this town for over 52 years now. Long time. I've seen a lot of things, came here actually during the Albert Grossman heyday and music scene, and also worked in town, ran Sunflower for a number of years. So I've both been inside and outside of town. I've worked as a planner, I've worked on environmental issues. And Woodstock has always been a reality of a dream. And I just want to say, I didn't prepare anything. I came here late. I got in here from Italy and we're just enjoying ourselves. And I wanted to see this because I felt it was so important. This proposal fits not just with the comprehensive plan and the vision in the plan, and I've worked on various aspects of documents too, like Ken and others and Ed in the past. But it also really reflects how you bring a town center in a small town into today's world, incorporating the environmental quality, incorporating community, listening to people, and I wholeheartedly encourage and expect that Lizzie will continue to listen to the ideas coming from the community. I think it's essential. It's what really does make Woodstock special. And whatever disagreements people have had in the past, I see this as an opportunity for us to come together, sort of a common unity. I also just wanted to say a couple of quick things. This isn't spot zoning, I'm not a lawyer, but as a planner previously, this is not what spot zoning is. It's not just something to benefit an individual by law. It benefits the community. It's a whole different approach. It's in statute. Comprehensive plan is what really should be leading us, and hopefully our zoning will continue to be revised and updated to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. I just also wanted to say it's very typical of small towns to have lines drawn through properties, and you know, Woodstock not alone in this. So it is a correction, and I just encourage you all to take this opportunity to do something positive and forward thinking, and let's see what can be created together.
You did the back row, okay, Michael?
Thank you. Mike Mulvey, Woodstock resident for 30 years this summer. Father, retired operating engineer, and an artist in the artist colony. To Ms. Van's presentation, thank you. I looked at something that came, I believe, from you when the Lashes property was first up for sale. I was working with another group about the idea of an artist cooperative being in that space, something that would support the town, provide housing, and also showcase what Woodstock is known for. And I was impressed with what I believe came from you. I didn't see it, but I heard details, and it seemed to resonate with what we were talking about. I may or may not be correct because it didn't come directly from me, but to that point, it does give some credibility to what you're speaking about doing here. And I have reservations, and those reservations, they just start from what I've learned here. We watched Selena come in and offer many jobs and a revitalization of the Pinecrest or the Pine Crack or the Woodstock Lodge. And a number of young people who had good jobs in town that I know in my daughter's circle left their jobs, as well as other people who were older and really needed those jobs. They left their jobs to go work for Selena. Selena backed out. The town has been injured. That property is sitting there next to the school, and at some point in time, fill in the blank for yourself. It's just sitting there now. Those jobs never materialized because Selena changed their mind. So, in light of what you've proposed, I have to bring that Selena story in. since it's not an uncommon thing to happen in these kind of deals. So that brings me to my second point. Guarantees and specificity are required before the zoning change is granted on this property at this time. If there's no specificity and there are no reasonable guarantees that the property will not be transferred to another entity who has contrary goals for that property, we are really opening ourselves up, because as other people in the know may speak to, any change in zoning is going to travel with the property, stay with the property, it's not specific to who owns it. So there again, this is something we are charged with protecting the town and developing it responsibly. So when we have the possibility of perhaps benevolent and well-meaning investment, we must also do our due diligence to prevent God forbid, bankruptcy, any number of reasons could change this ownership or the present owner's motivations. And so we have no control of that, but we need to do reasonable diligence to see that we have looked at possibilities and made provisions for how this affordable housing will maintain and be, won't be disappear in 5 years that we've built. So that's kind of important to me. So guarantees and specificity. Very quickly, Ms. Van came in and wants to change the zoning, and the zoning review is going on, and bang, it happens. This artist colony is literally dying as we speak, okay? And nothing has been done since 2019 to help us. All we've gotten from this town, from this board, is a failure to address those DB levels and an attempt to push a selective interpretation of the law upon our police chief, okay? And that is bothering me because we're dying and we're dying out. And perhaps this will help. So I'm not saying you've ignored us because we don't have much to rub together. And yet here we are making change. So I just wanted to put that back on the calendar. We need to talk about what that commercial zone is there for and what it's supposed to be supporting. And then I'll say it because I'm just that kind of guy. I didn't appreciate the warning from the lawyer not to look at what the future implications of this could be. That to me seemed disingenuous. Okay, if we're going to grant a zoning change and then be told we can't consider what it means downstream, I got a problem with that whole. If I were a person that meant good to this town and my lawyer came in and did that in my presentation, I'd fire my lawyer. But that's me, and I'm known to be somewhat difficult to deal with. And finally, the extremely generous offer by Ms. Van to perhaps sell it to the town at cost and let the town solve its own problems is really, really, I don't know how to say it. It may sound like instead of spending $30 million to tear up that field and put the pool and all this stuff there, let's buy this property and secure it in perpetuity for the town. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, going around the back of the room. Okay.
This is all your thing.
Good,
I have broad shoulders. Gordon Webb, resident in hinterlands here, up the hill. I try to stay away from all these needy village people as much as I can. Even when I was on the town board, I always called them needy village people. They thought Woodstock was the village. That's Woodstock. The rest of it is, good luck. So it was a really different perspective. So that being said, personally, what happens in the village, I avoid it as much as I can. You go to Kingston, I go over a mountain down the back road, but I love the village. And another point, I also have
split zone. 3 to 5, if we could do something about that, that would be. I wouldn't include another house. I'll make it nice, I promise. But really, and what Michael said, yeah, I see the temperature of the room, in the community, this is the important thing. You're gonna consider changing this zone. Now, on my old ZBA pen. It does go to the property. And to change the zoning of the property, we should be looking at the property, not the applicant. And in this case, I'm not even sure if really you have an applicant for a zoning change, but it shouldn't be. But she wants to do it, and it's all part of it, and we have to look at this holistically. And do we want to increase the commercial area? And if something were to happen and Lizzie had a bail for whatever reason, things do happen, Michael brought that up. We have to look at it. And I think we really need to take a good hard look. We can all get caught up in pie in the sky stuff and say, yeah, let's go. I've been a part of that. I was the one that championed the Woodstock Commons. I started that in 2002. It was built in 2012. Something. I was long off the board by the time I got there. So, these things take time, like the zoning changes. Everybody grouses that, they do 2 years of work and gee, where is the end result? But these things take time. So I was a little surprised to see this thing going through so quickly on an early board. But like I said, I started the Affordable Housing Committee and that project my first year on the board. So God bless you, keep the energy up and keep it going. But I would just recommend you really look at this as town property, what it'll do for the town, not so much leaning on the applicant in this case.
Right, going along the back. Once, twice coming down my left side. All right. Okay, so, in discussion with our legal counsel, the advice was to keep the public hearing open. So that folks could actually email us, moving forward, any comments. And also answer any questions that town board members have raised. And so, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, we haven't had much of a chance to discuss this in terms of the legal process, so I'm available to the board members whenever we find it convenient.
I have 2 questions when I spoke.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll schedule that time, whether it's in an executive session, and we can talk about that. You want to raise your questions now?
Well, I did actually, yeah, and you don't have to answer, you can think about it and get back. But I know that we've heard from the applicant's lawyer that this is not spot zoning. My concern is, we're hearing the and I love Lizzie, what she's done in Bearsville, I love what she's done in Bearsville. So my question is, as we talk about Lizzie's specific plan, and we love Lizzie's plan, and let's go make a change because of Lizzie's plan. I'm confused about how that's not spot zone. Because we're saying, let's make a change because we love this plan, as opposed to what Gordon said, which is, let's make a change because the town needs, because if we go have a commercial, now we can have in that next slice of land closer to the residences, we could have a kennel, we could have a bar, we could have a tavern, we could have an automotive repair shop. There's a lot of stuff that Hamlet Commercial does allow. And so, anyway, so my question to you is, do you as our town's lawyer, do you agree that this is not spot zoning?
Spot zoning, well, first of all, spot zoning itself is a pejorative term. It's essentially the term that you use when something is not legal. So the same type of thing, these zoning are not, spot zoning are not depending on how ultimately it gets resolved. Spot zoning typically has 2 components to it. One is that it's for a particular parcel, often with a particular proposal, particular developer. And secondly, that the proposed use for the parcel is inconsistent with the town's goals and plan. Okay, those are the 2. And if it wasn't for a particular parcel, a rezoning always has to be consistent with the town's comp plan. And so the spot zoning becomes more of an issue because it's a particular parcel. And so it gets heightened scrutiny on that basis because there's that suspicion. But ultimately, as several speakers said, it comes down to whether it's consistent with the comp plan. In anticipation of that question, I tried to look at the comp plan. I'm fairly new to the town, as you guys know. I was unable to download it. so I don't know.
Oh, it's,
And-
you went to the .gov website?
I Googled it and I couldn't open it.
But it's on the .gov website, you should be able to.
But having said that, it's more than just what's in the document. The comp plan, such as is necessary to support zoning, is really more than what's in the document. It's really the town's goals that you can glean from the document itself, from the town's zoning law, and also from the comments. I mean, I'm on a learning curve, and so the question is going to become whether the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, with the town's plan, as we understand it from all of the, not only the comp plan and the zoning and the comments, but also other studies that have been done, reports that may have come out, secret reviews that may have been done by the planning board on neighboring properties, if there was a study as to the, Tinker Street corridor or something else. There's a lot of work that's typically most towns have done over the years that indicate where they want to go, what their sense is, what the way to go forward is with respect to a particular area. I'm beginning to develop an impression of that question, but I'd hold off on that until we learn more. Hearing from the public is extraordinarily useful, but that the answer is going to be the fact that it's a particular spot is of course what raises that question, but the ultimate answer to that question is whether it's consistent with the town's goals for its growth in that area.
Sure, but we're not getting guarantees of that, we're getting Lizzie's plan, but does that mean that we can get a guarantee from Lizzie to make sure it's consistent?
You're not gonna get the speakers who said that we're not gonna know where this goes downstream are correct. And so the point is, when you obviously, and we're gonna talk a little bit about seeker as well, but in terms of her proposal, but downstream with the rezoning of these parcels to the commercial zone that's been proposed, the the Hamlet commercial, has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan with all that's entailed with that zone. I mean, that zone exists within a few feet of where they're proposing it, right?
It does.
And so the question becomes, does the extension of that zone to the north, to a parcel to the north on each of two adjacent parcels east-west, whether that is consistent as that zone is defined in the code, that's what you're doing legislatively, whether that is consistent with the town's plan for its own growth. And so you have to take into account what the eventualities are, and in particular, and we'll talk about this downstream, when we do seeker review, we'll have to take into account what those eventualities are.
Okay, and my second question is this, and as some people know, I used to be on the planning board, and when the planning board had a project in front of us that was going to affect, it was a certain parcel, and it's gonna affect neighbors, the town would send letters out to those neighbors to make sure they knew. So my other question is, this is kind of a little different, it's not the planning board, it's not the ZBA, it's the town board, but because we are talking about this handful of parcels right next to each other, I would feel more comfortable if we had sent letters to the neighbors. I forget what the radius is if we send letters to the ZBA, but I would feel more comfortable if we had sent them letters to say, hey, to make sure they know. I know that they're published in the Hudson Valley One. I know that we've been, the website says we're having a public hearing, but we haven't actually made sure the neighbors.
Is there a question?
Yeah, the question is, can we send letters to the neighbors and make sure they know the public hearing is still open and make sure that they know what their deadline is to respond if they have a response? Can we send letters to the neighbors?
Can we talk about this offline? Well, we'll talk about this offline.
Yeah, Also, as counsel for the applicant, I also like an opportunity to speak with counsel for the town board. And there is a third element with respect to spot zoning. And it has to do with whether or not the lot area differs from the established zoning of the surrounding area. That's a key factor. This does not, this abuts, as a matter of fact, part of the property is in the Hamlet commercial district. That's in the case law, and I can speak with you offline as well if you want to discuss that further.
Okay, but you just suggested another factor or another criterion, which you've been saying is consistent. I mean, okay, ultimately this is gonna come down to whether it's consistent with the comp plan in terms of the area.
Right.
The fact that it's, I mean, I'm not gonna, we can talk more offline, but that's the question in my mind as I approach this question is, in terms of spot zoning is, which is the same as any zoning, but again, it's only accentuated because we're looking at a spot. That's the way this comes down. That's why it's called spot zoning. Is this consistent with the town's vision for its growth as represented in all of the documents and the testimony and what we hear? And so the fact that you're seeking to expand from an adjacent zone into a different zone, I mean, ultimately it's going to be inconsistent with the zone that you're expanding into. So And frankly, I was actually trying to look at what the uses were that were different between the two. I think that ultimately just washes through. I mean, the critical question here is, does the town's plan for its growth to support this, or is this rather, would this rather be primarily for the benefit of the proponent, or is this for the benefit of the town as reflected in the town's vision for its growth as expressed in these variety of documents? That's the way I would look at it. So if you have a different impression, I'm happy to trade.
Can I just say, I set out to make it part of the comprehensive plan vision. I have not set out to make my benefit.
Okay.
Except that.
All right, what I'm gonna do now is, since Councilperson Ricky had ample time to ask a couple of questions, I'd like to go through, and allow the space for other council people to ask questions or make their comments. Councilperson Burrows?
Can I ask a question to Lizzie to respond to, or is this?
Yes.
Do you want to speak at all? I know I went to the property over the weekend. Do you want to speak to where you're pulling the numbers to, when you talked about low rent? I know Anna spoke a little bit about that. I know we spoke about that on Sunday. We can speak a little bit about where you're pulling those numbers from, so people have a sense of it. Because affordable, what we see in affordable in Ulster County, as everybody knows, it's not, affordable is not $2,000. Affordable is not for the average person. I'll say I'm the average person. Is certainly not $2,000 or $2,500. So we just want to talk a little bit about that.
Lizzie, can I ask you to please go on the other side? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm learning about what affordability is. I'm not a municipality in terms of being able to get state grants or housing and have it be part of a municipal plan. I'm doing this as a private person, and that means that I have to consider the cost of doing it. So I can't just think I'm building these and it'll all be at a certain price. I must consider the cost of doing this, and I haven't got to the point where I know what the cost of doing it is yet, because until we resolve the zoning issue, Joseph, who's our architect here, and Graydon, we can't get into the design of them, and therefore we can't work out what the cost is. That might sound to you like mealy mouthing, it's the truth. I'm also listening to Susan Goldman and Deborah Dubois and Irena, who have worked very hard on affordable housing in this town, and I'm taking their advice. And there are many different calculations. You gave me a good education on that, Irena.
I gave her, Susan and I worked on it, gave her information for this proposal in terms of, because the AMI is not out of control, so we are actually trying to adjust it, that makes more sense. So we did pass that information off to.
So I need to look at that. I have time.
I just wanted you to talk a little bit about it.
We are definitely trying to meet that, but like I say, because I'm not getting state grants, it's going to be a question of how we do this, how we make it affordable. But my plan is to, and if you were to ask any of the people that have lived in the houses that we have up in Bearsville, which are single person units with large bars, then I always ask people what they earn, and I make sure that they can afford the rent. So the rents up there are low, and that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm not trying to make money, I'm just trying to create something in mind with a comprehensive plan that I can afford to finance to do. I'm 67 years old, I made a lot of money selling organic baby food and organic food and farming, and now I want to give back, but I can't do that. What I did with Bearsville, for those of you who are interested, is I took Bearsville that had not been sustainable for 50 years. It's never made enough money to allow it to be repaired and the buildings to be painted and the equipment to be replaced. And I brought in good quality people to work on it, and then good quality tenants to pay rent. And now finally, after 50 years, Bearsville's sustainable. So the person that was worried here about whether or not it's now going to, oh, Sarah, she's gone, I think. Whether or not it's now going to become, I don't know, a bowling rink or whatever it is, it's not. We have got great tenants there. We have got long leases. They are all going to stay. Doesn't matter who owns it. And I will be making sure that those criteria work. So I would say the same thing here. This is not a short-term plan. It is my plan, and there's no way I can take myself out of it. I've got a great team of people, and I'm willing to listen to the town and try and put some partnership into it so that it is also working with you guys. I would like to talk to a number of people who spoke and make sure that we I'll run a dialogue about this as we go through it.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, no,
Okay.
okay. Okay, Councilperson Bob.
So I have more, I guess, just observations and thoughts. So, yeah, our comp plan, having read through it a few times, does stress our identity as colony of the arts, affordable housing, housing for seniors, attracting and maintaining young families, providing recreational spaces that will attract and maintain, attract young families and give the townspeople a place for community. I mean, that seems to be one of the real tenets of our comp plan, is community and supporting the type of community that has made Woodstock what it is. And I think we can do a lot more work on Colony of the Arts, and I do expect that this board is going to do. I think this whole project sounds terrific, but looking at the property and not the applicant, I've looked at the map of the housing, Hamlet commercial. If you count parcels, there's approximately 159 parcels in the Hamlet commercial district. Of those parcels, just a handful are bisected between Hamlet commercial and Hamlet residential. The only place where the bisection happens through buildings is here, is the Lasher property and the library, because even though that what we saw looks like the Hamlet commercial, Hamlet residential line goes before the library. When you look at the 2019 survey that was done for the Woodstock Library, which I have a copy of, that survey shows the line between Hamlet commercial and Hamlet residential, and it actually runs through the front entryway of the building.
Which building?
The library building. I'll send you a copy of it. I mean, it should probably be open, files you can count, but anyway, I can send you a copy of it. So to me, again, people have said, why was the zoning done 40 years ago this way? Whether it's somebody had a straight edge or there were, who knows why. But it's almost 40 years old. And it runs through buildings only on this property. And that does seem like an error, however it happened, that really does need to be corrected. And this is not adding acres and acres of commercial land to the village. We're talking about 150-foot north lot line adjustment. And that still brings, if you again do the measurements because the Ulster County Parcel Viewer has a measuring tool. If you do the measurements, see, well, how far up Library Lane will that then go? It's less than what we have going up Playhouse Lane with the Hamlet commercial properties there. It's less than what we have going up Elwood Lane with the commercial properties there. So just looking at the data, trying to do the math, it seems to me that this is an anomaly that should be corrected, that should never have happened.
Thank you. Helpful person for first and foremost, I'm really happy to see a lot of support for this project because I also think it's a really good project. But I have spent a lot of time listening to the concerns from the ZBA and from some other concerned citizens. And I kind of did a little bit of a deep dive, and I was kind of looking at just kind of the project as a whole. It's 4 parcels. And a couple of things I heard were that there was a fear that someone could buy all 4 parcels and do something big, like a movie theater or something like that. That exists, I want to say exists already, right? That's something that's a reality. Anybody, if they wanted to and they had enough money, they could buy 4 parcels, combine it, and make a bigger thing. And one of the other things I was really surprised about, there was kind of like a list of things that would be allowed. And some of them are like automobile repair facility, dance hall, bowling alley, kennels, motion picture theaters, parking lots, taverns, bar, nightclub, veterinarian's office, videocade, personal, all of these things. And a lot of them would require special use permits anyway. Some of them are straight up permitted in the Hamlet commercial district, but a lot of them would require a special use permit. I think on something to scale, when you're looking at the value of that property, you're going to be really, really hard pressed to have a video arcade spend $2 million. So I think what the bigger concern is for me.
Compel us to.
Yeah. What the bigger concern is for me is that, and I think if people are very comfortable with the idea of a hamlet residential area or making that a hamlet residential area. But the reality is that by my calculations, looking at what you're adding, it's about 1.75 acres of commercial, hamlet commercial space in the property. In juxtaposition of that, if we want to think about somebody else that was looking at that property, and I don't really want to name names, but they have a 2.42 acre property in the Hamlet residential area that is a very high-end hotel with retail and with services that the community can't access. So when you look at just the two side by side, I think it's a pretty fair guess to say that if this didn't work out and this property did go onto the free market, there wouldn't be any restrictions in terms of what they can do, right? And that also pairs into the Xena development. And I think what's nice about looking at this rezoning and looking at the zoning that we're talking about with the Xena development and how CEA operates, this is a great, we don't want this, but we want stuff like this. And if we can say, this is the example of what we want, then maybe those developers will go, oh, I can still make money off of this, but I can do it in a conservationist way, in a way that works for the community. So that's just my standpoint. Thank you.
By the way, one of the properties is subject to a conservation easement, it's non-developable.
Great, awesome, even better.
All right. And also, if there are certain uses that the board finds noxious or objectionable, they can always re-legislate and change the schedule of uses.
All right, thank you. So the public hearing will remain open. Folks who want to email us their comments, please do so. And this public hearing will be continued to the town board meeting dated February 17th. That's going to give the town board a chance to consult with legal to review work that was done to date. And at the 2/17 meeting, the town board will vote on this. Thank you. We're going to move to public comment. So their speakers are limited to, in the public section that we're moving into, speakers are limited to 3 minutes. So for those who are on the list, just come up here, announce your name. Megan, you have the list.
I do. Sam, you want to speak?
Well, I spoke before, but.
Got it covered, okay, Susan? I think Susan, she had it covered, you're right. It might be better.
Yeah.
There's other things that are happening.
So I actually gonna take my time to talk.
3 minutes.
I got you. So I actually wanna take my time to kind of add to what you just said. And that I think that's a good idea that we have.
Guys, do you mind? Thank
I
you.
think that it's a good idea that we.
Gordon, I'm gonna add, thank you.
I think it's a good idea that we think about this as a model project. That maybe we have somebody we can trust, we have good partners, and that we can look at this as a model project for future projects. One of the other big things about the housing committee and what we talked about is that we're a rural district. We don't wanna have big apartment buildings with 164 units. That doesn't make sense for our community or the area or the environment. So this is a good example of small, little little bit of housing grouped here with something else. And in another place, another hamlet, potentially there's another little group of housing that we're not over exceeding and having this unbelievably, outrageously huge housing community. That we need a bunch of little pockets of middle housing, which is shared housing. In 1970, 87, 88, I don't know if you know this, but they had done in their zoning, when they put the zoning document together, which is the last time that there was actual real significant zoning, they did exclusionary zoning. They took out all shared housing, middle housing, and it's a big chunk of the reason that we're in the problem right now with affordable housing, because they took all of that out of the zoning. So part of the proposed zoning that has been with a consultant who is peer reviewed academically, land use planner for rural areas, masters and a BS in Wild Biology came and helped the Housing Oversight Task Force with our historian, town historian, and a bunch of CBA board members, planning board, and pulled together and spent 3 years, sometimes 2 times a week, putting the proposed zoning that's been on your table since 2023 to solve some of these problems. And we also added conservation subdivision, because if you got problems with what's going on in our town, go to a planning board meeting and see how they have no backbone or help from the town, previous town board. They haven't had any help to stand up to some of these commercial developers. And we have no laws or update it. We have it on board. We need to adopt it, work it out, adopt it, and tweak where it's needed. But that will help us protect ourselves and incentivize people to do projects like this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sarah.
Is Sarah okay?
Is it possible to put up somewhere easier on the town website for people a copy so that they understand just the section of the zoning law, what is in the commercial district and what that residential district is? And so that they don't have to go through the entire law themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you on the website, there is a page on the website that has the map. And the upper corner of the map has Hamlet Commercial. You can download the map if you want.
No, I'm not talking about the map, I'm talking about what the restrictions are, there's a section there in the law. What uses are available, make it easier so that they don't have to look at the zoning law. Cause I have heard a lot of people here having a lot of concerns about, well, what's gonna be allowed in the commercial district. And you're getting ahead of your skis, cause
We
it's
can
special
talk
use
about
permits.
that, but that is a good idea.
Yeah,
Because it's in there.
Yeah, Rachel, I can talk about that, but I did put in a comparison chart. So there is a comparison chart on the website from the proposed laws page. If you go to the town laws and within that little proposed laws, I went to the use table and I lifted everything out. I deleted everywhere where everything was identical, and all you'll see in there is the file that says HC versus HR. It shows everything that is different between Hamlet Commercial and Hamlet Residential.
Right, and
So
it
it's
explains that Hamlet residential is what, 1 acre zoning, right?
Could we,
That's a difference.
yeah, okay, so maybe you could send Rebecca a link?
Well, yeah, we'll talk afterwards and we'll.
Yeah, no, I know where to find that, I'm just trying to make it easier for your constituents to see where it is.
Okay, so anyone else aside from Sarah?
Mike.
Sarah's here.
Sarah's back?
Yeah.
And please, forgive me for my appearance, my timing, all of it. Please don't anyone cut me off or any of that, and I don't wanna be misunderstood for who I am. Or any of it, not at all. We have a very, very big problem. I'm the only person who sat in our budget here. Anula, you were there. Lori, Lily, I so wish you were there. Laura, you were there and I'm so disappointed. Oh boy, am I. Because since April 29th, that's my birthday, it was 80 degrees inside my home, 80 degrees outside my home. I asked for an inspection of my home starting then. Yes, I did. You know when the last time that was inspected? So Butch was looking for John Muth, who owns 117 Quaker Street. Everybody was, the police were. The state police were, and the reason the state police were there is because in our budget, what do we have on budget line for? Who are we paying in our police department? A detective. Who's our detective? Will you please answer us? I'm sorry, this is not exactly publicly heard, but we don't have a detective. And that's why we have a state police officer. That's why we can't figure out who has my space. So it's Raiders. Raiders have my space. And by the grace of God, I was rescued out and I had to be cuffed when I rushed back up those stairs. I wasn't yelling, fuck the police. Not at all. No, those are my heroes. Those are the only people I trust right now. I'm not sure who to trust right now, and that's why. Please forgive me. When I ask questions, it's not to be rude. It's because I'm trying to find minutes and I'm seeing some really bad mistakes. And I'm trying to
because I've tried to preserve the dignity and reputation of people who own homes here, and I'm afraid for it to go. I'm afraid to see our town go to just a few people who own what I'm calling a monopoly board. And I'm seeing us lose our third elementary school, but if you're way back, remember Xena? Do you remember Xena Elementary School? Because that's 4. I'm old, but I'm too old for this shit. Excuse me, but I'm too old to watch this go down. Like, when you have to show up at these meetings. I mean, we have people who are on committees, commissions that don't show up, but what really happened is we don't have a detective, but we have a chief who, Chief Keefe, you went out the door when the Red Cross had to come to the police station. There's a person who can't handle me in his space. I don't have that temporary space because my energy was crazy because I'm doing the admin. But that's what I do in my space. Yes, I am disabled. Do I have to whip out my medical records like I had to whip out my boobs to show people versus Santorelli 1992? And let's not have like Captain McFlappers conversation about our police force. Adam McGrath, who should be our chief. God bless him, he ripped me out of my door. He ripped me out of my door with no socks because there's no smoke alarms in that whole building. And the last time that building was inspected was 2019. John Youth. That's right. That's who gets the mail in that shared mailbox. Do you hear me opening my mouth? No, ma'am, no, sir. But that is who gets the benefits. I'm not sitting here collecting benefits. I don't get extra money. I have 90% of my SSDI is my rent. And I have to get a ride to Kingston and a ride back. And I paid for it. So that's what happened. But that detective, we don't have. But we're paying somebody who is it. So this jurisdiction handoff allowed that tape to have to be reattached to my home, the only door that's open. And I'm lied to about the inside of my home, but God bless everyone whose lives were put at risk because the third time that ignited. And I'm trying right now, I need help. I need a storage unit. I need a safe place to be. Because it's not gonna be some shit hotel. And I thank God for Matt Schmidt. And once again, like who saved Nick Henderson? Kyle Haynes saved me too. He was there with Sergeant McGrath pulling me out the door because there was no sound except for the person who throws up, power puking, pressure washing with vomit for an hour on his break from Cumberland Farms. And the best video of those flames was a person who stood next to Aaron Moran on the porch of the station saying, he's gonna fuck me up, bitch. My bitches are gonna fuck you up. And my landlady said to me that they're in a gang. So now I'm gonna say it out loud and say it out proud. Because when you say it under a street lamp, sometimes people will come behind you and understand you can't say things out loud when you have not a single lock on your window. We're at 117, I get it. But that was like that. I can't tell you because they knew, and my window was open during budget. It's been pried open, which stood in my home with Melissa Gray from our planning board. He stood in my home and sent a nasty, nasty email. You can foil it. Thank you. Foilers. What he sent to me, blaming me that I should have been responsible for a gap in my window like this, not a single lock, elements coming in, where rodents have come up in droves. I've replaced every single thing in my home more than once, and I pay about $100 for all fabric to go to Woodstock laundry. Coins. You see this? I have a cyst in my brain. I have all kinds of neurological problems. I am disabled. I'll never drive again. Please don't splash puddles on me. I'm worth it. I have no saved. I have ice. I kept my wallet out.
Thank you.
Thank you to my heroes whose lives were at risk of dying. There's holes through. I need to get my stuff out because it's been taken out. My stuff's been taken out, including journals.
Sorry.
Looking for my wallet. Thank you.
Any other names though? Mike.
Sorry. Okay, I'll be quick. And I want to talk about communication a little bit. We've got two things. We've got a website, and I really like Rebecca's what she was holding in on. And that is that, as we're building a new website, things like linking the map to, like All this information is digital now, and I understand, I'm kind of like myself, an analog guy in the digital world. So that's a really good point. This is not a castigation. I know this board was not trying to do anything untoward, but it was very hard. We'll find out about this, public be heard at this meeting. And one of the reasons is that when we go to the calendar, okay, and click on the calendar for the agenda, there should have been an explanation of what this public hearing was about under the calendar date, and there should have been a link to, I'm not saying that law requires that, but past practice has given us that. And so we should be moving in a direction that improves upon it, instead of letting things like this meeting possibly be missed by people that would have been interested. So, and then the final thing on communication, I really, let's stop there for a second, I really would just appreciate it if we look at those protocols. And I understand everybody's got a new job here now, right? Everybody's got a new job. And just make sure that this information is getting up there with the proper links in a timely fashion so that we're working it out. The final thing is that presentation that we got over the Zoom thing, useless to probably half the people in the room that are anywhere near my age. We need to have, a couple little like $100 Bluetooth speakers in the back, so that we can all hear the presentation, and then be able to actually give informed information back to the town. So thank you very much. It's been a long meeting. I'll let you go.
Thank you. All right, that's it, right? We're gonna move very quickly. I do have some announcements. So speaking of websites and emergency notification systems, Councilperson Lori Osmond will be point for making recommendations to the board for an emergency notification system. So thank you, Lori. And I will be working with the town board to put together parameters for a new website. Many of you know that there's so we're gonna be looking at a good website solution moving forward, putting together a task force to look at that with some guidelines from the town board so that we could effectively listen to and actually take the recommendations of that task force. So more to come on that. Very, very quickly to Sarah's point, I do want to acknowledge fire and police. There was a bad fire, and so our police department responded first. Fire responded right behind them, and everybody did get out of the home safely, I guess including 2 cats. And also, water sewer. Yeah, like water sewer, and this is really important because we talk about 4-foot snowbanks here, and water sewer, they showed up to get the hydrants clear, and they did that at my request, and they did it swiftly. And had that not happened, that would have been a very different story. So I do want to acknowledge them. They're a little department. They work a lot, and they never. So that's with that, I'm going to move to close this meeting, to adjourn the meeting. Second, okay, all in favor? Yes. Thank you.